My mother-in-law said, "My son deserves better than you. I'm going to make sure he sees that." She sabotaged our marriage for 2 years until he finally left me. When his next 3 relationships failed the same way, he realized the common denominator wasn't his wives. I'm Rachel, 32 years old, female. And if I never hear the phrase, "my son deserves better than you," again, it'll still be tattooed behind my eyelids for life. My mother-in-law, Cheryl, 61, has always had this smile. Tight, dry-lipped, like she practiced it in a mirror but forgot what joy actually felt like. I remember the first time she hugged me. Not really a hug, more like a brief, polite press of her palms against my back like she was afraid I'd stain her. I had just started dating Mark, her only son. He was sweet, funny, obsessed with fantasy football, and made the best damn scrambled eggs I've ever had. I fell fast. I didn't grow up with a mom. Mine died when I was 13, and Cheryl knew that. I think I always wanted her to like me too much. I baked her banana bread the third time we met. She said she was allergic to walnuts. There were no walnuts. The thing about Cheryl is that she doesn't say what she means. She implies it. An art form, really. When Mark and I got engaged, she said, "Oh, you're doing a courthouse thing? That's economical." When I wore a blue dress to Easter lunch, she muttered, "I always pictured Mark with someone more classic." And when I miscarried at 10 weeks and couldn't stop crying for days, she dropped off soup and said, "Well, everything happens for a reason. Maybe it's just not your time." At first, I thought it was just tension, generational differences. Maybe she was trying, in her own rigid way, to warm up. Mark said, "She's always been like that, babe. You just gotta let it roll off." But it didn't roll off. It stuck. Things got worse after the wedding. Cheryl started showing up unannounced with Tupperware meals that somehow all tasted like soap. She redecorated our guest room while we were at work, claimed it was a surprise for when she visits. She gave Mark a framed photo of just him on his 35th birthday, captioned, "My perfect boy." I wasn't in the picture. I wasn't even mentioned. Still, I held it together, smiled, tried. Because Mark was my husband, and you don't just give up because your MIL is a professional boundary crosser. But then came the thing that broke me. It was at his cousin Melissa's wedding. Big fancy affair, vineyard venue, flowing wine. I was wearing this emerald green dress I'd saved up for, something that made me feel confident for once, powerful even. Mark leaned in and whispered, "You look amazing." I actually believed him. Then Cheryl came up behind us and tapped my shoulder. "Rachel, dear," she said loud enough for the entire table to hear, "you're so brave for wearing that cut. I don't think I'd have the confidence with your frame." My frame. It wasn't the comment itself. It was the smirk. The way she turned to her friends and smoothed her skirt like she'd just squashed a bug. I didn't cry. Not then. But that was the moment I knew. This wasn't misunderstanding. It was war. She had no intention of letting me live peacefully with her son. And I hadn't even realized yet how deep the sabotage already ran. After that wedding incident, I stopped giving Cheryl the benefit of the doubt. I started paying attention. That's when the pattern came into focus. Mark would come home distant, cold, sometimes irritated for no reason. One night, he asked if I'd been spending too much on groceries because his mom mentioned things seemed tight in our budget. She'd never seen our budget. Another time, I found him scrolling Zillow. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "Just looking. Mom said we're probably throwing money away on this neighborhood. Said we could do better." She was feeding him lines. Quiet, corrosive lines. And he didn't even realize he was repeating them. It got bolder. Cheryl started texting him screenshots of Instagram influencers and saying things like, "This is what a polished woman looks like." One of them was literally wearing the same dress I had worn to a dinner party the week before. Mark didn't make the connection. He started pulling away in small ways that felt like death by 1,000 cuts. He used to leave me notes on the fridge. Stopped. Used to make dinner together on Sundays. Suddenly had plans, usually involving his mom. I tried confronting him gently. I said, "I feel like she's putting things in your head." Mark bristled. "That's my mother, Rachel. She just wants what's best." Yeah, best for her. 3 months later, I came home early from work and found Cheryl sitting on our couch with a folder. She was showing Mark apartments, one-bedroom units, just for him. She looked up and said, "Oh, you're home early," like I was the intruder. Mark started saying things like, "Maybe we moved too fast and I just don't feel like myself anymore." Classic language of someone being emotionally rewired. Then I found the letter, folded into one of his sweatshirts, a handwritten note from Cheryl, thick cursive, smelling like her perfume. "You've always been too special to settle. You need someone who builds you up, not someone you have to carry. Love doesn't drain. Real women elevate their men." He tried to brush it off like it was just her being intense, but he didn't throw it away. He folded it back up and left the room. That was the first night I didn't sleep in our bed. I needed proof. I started documenting everything: screenshots, text messages, even audio from one of their conversations where she called me a jealous, underachieving leech. I wasn't paranoid. I was under attack. The breaking point came 6 months in. I came home to find the lock changed. He hadn't even told me. Just a single text. "I think we need space. I'll stay with Mom. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Cheryl had won. At least, that's what she thought. What none of them knew, yet, was I'd already started building my own plan. Not for reconciliation, for exposure. Don't forget to subscribe. The week after Mark locked me out, I stayed with my friend Jessa, 34, my ride or die since college. She didn't ask dumb questions like, "Are you sure it's not just a phase?" She handed me wine, downloaded a document scanner app onto my phone, and said, "Start building a war chest." So I did. I went full forensic. Every text Cheryl had ever sent me that could be twisted into her version of concern. I reread them with fresh eyes. The guilt trips, the backhanded praise, the financial jabs. I started saving them, organizing by theme: psychological manipulation, financial interference, emotional undermining. Then I found my smoking gun. Mark and I had shared a joint cloud drive for bills, receipts, stuff like that. Apparently, he forgot to delink my access. Nestled in a subfolder labeled Mom Docs was an email thread between Cheryl and a private investigator. She had hired someone to check into Rachel's background. The email was dated 4 months after our wedding. I stared at the screen, breath frozen. She listed names of my exes, a vague mention of a workplace incident that never happened, and one line that made my skin crawl. "I believe she is manipulating Mark emotionally. Possibly financial coercion involved. She has no family, nothing to lose." She was building a legal case to discredit me, to cut me out of his life completely. And worse, Mark had replied in that thread. Just once. But he replied, "Thanks, Mom. Let me know if you find anything." He knew. That broke something in me. The next day, I went to our old place while I knew he'd be at work. I still had the garage code. He forgot to change that. I didn't touch anything. Just stood in the living room we picked out furniture for and took one thing: the wedding album. Not out of sentiment. I had plans for that. The same week, I got a call from my boss. Cheryl had emailed my workplace pretending to be a concerned relative. She expressed concern about my erratic behavior and possible substance use. Said I might be having a breakdown after my separation. I work in nonprofit grant management. Reputation matters. Thankfully, my boss flagged it and called me directly. But the message was clear. Cheryl wasn't just trying to remove me from Mark's life. She wanted to ruin mine. I filed a police report for harassment. Didn't press charges, yet. Just wanted it on record. I also locked down every account, changed passwords, closed the joint checking account, and got a restraining order pending a hearing. Mark didn't show up to the hearing. Cheryl did. She wore pearls. When the judge granted the temporary order, her face crumpled for a second, just a flicker, and then it snapped back into that tight, smug smile. She whispered as she walked past me, "You're not done with me." I believed her. But she had no idea. I wasn't done with her either, because that wedding album? I had just mailed copies of it, along with screenshots and that PI email, to 3 very important people: her pastor, her HOA board, she was president, and her work. Let the facade crack. I expected fallout. What I didn't expect was how fast it would hit. The pastor emailed me 2 days later. Short, formal, and cold. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Cheryl has been removed from her mentorship position until further notice. We are investigating the matter. Her church image? Cracked. Then came the HOA. I don't know what I expected there, but those people are bloodthirsty. The board president called me personally, said they'd received disturbing documentation and were convening a special meeting. Cheryl had been on some power trip about enforcing lawn colors and mailbox sizes. She made enemies. Now they had ammunition. Her next-door neighbor posted a vague but clearly pointed rant on Facebook about neighborhood bullies who live in glass houses. The comments section was a war zone. Then the best part, her job. She worked in PR for a regional health organization. Image obsessed. I sent everything anonymously, of course. Screenshots. The PI email. A copy of the letter where she said I had nothing to lose. 3 days later, she was on leave. Not fired, yet. But the whisper trail had started. And that's when Mark came crawling back. I woke up to a long-ass email. Rambling, full of half apologies, and I didn't know she took it that far, and I missed the way things used to feel. He had the nerve to ask if we could talk. I didn't reply. 2 nights later, he showed up at Jessa's. Didn't knock. Just stood on the sidewalk like some tragic rom-com reject. Jessa answered the door. You need to go, Mark. I just want to talk to her. She doesn't want to talk to you? He tried the wounded act. She's blowing this out of proportion. My mom's just intense. It's not like she actually hurt anyone. Oh, really? I stepped outside. You let her file an investigation on me, Mark. She thought something was wrong. I didn't ask her to. You replied to the email. You said, let me know if you find anything. That's collusion. He blinked. Like I'd spoken a word he didn't know. I wasn't going to let him control the narrative, so I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Cheryl's voicemail from the week before. I told Mark everything I dug up on you. He's starting to see how you're holding him back. Maybe now he'll finally wake up. His face drained. You recorded her? She called me, Mark. I just saved it. He stepped back, like he'd been slapped. You sent all this to her church? Her job? You want to know the best part? I said, voice flat. Her HOA is voting on her removal tonight. They read the email where she called me a parasite with a barren womb. He flinched. Yeah, she wrote that. I went back inside. Jessa locked the door. Mark stood there another 10 minutes before leaving. But I wasn't done. Because Cheryl wasn't spiraling, she was scheming. And her next move would drag innocent people into the mess. Specifically, Mark's next girlfriend. Don't forget to subscribe. Update 1. So, yeah. Y'all were not kidding in the comments. Some of you said, she's gonna torch her own life trying to win and drag him down with her. Others messaged me stuff like, you need to move out of state before she frames you for identity theft. One guy literally wrote, Cheryl's the kind of woman who'd slash her own tires just to blame the mailman. Honestly? Fair. All of it. First, thank you. I read every single comment. Some of you made me laugh when I hadn't in days. Some of you reminded me I wasn't crazy. That none of this was normal. That helped more than I can explain. Now the real reason I'm updating, Mark moved back in with Cheryl. Let that sit. After everything, after being publicly humiliated, losing his job offers because his emotional maturity came up during background checks, yes, really, and literally crying on my sidewalk, he went back to the woman who poisoned his marriage. Said he had nowhere else to go. Said she was just trying to protect him. You know what Cheryl did to welcome him home? She threw a dinner party, invited his ex from college, a woman he dated 10 years ago who now lives out of state but just happened to be in town. Jessa's cousin was there and got it all on video. Cheryl was beaming. Poured wine, made Mark sit next to the ex, and introduced her to the table as someone who always saw Mark's worth. Y'all? I laughed so hard I nearly choked. And here's the kicker. 2 weeks later, Mark started dating her again. Yeah, the ex. Apparently, Cheryl's dream woman is alive and available, and she pushed hard enough until it stuck. I watched the whole thing unfold on Instagram like a trash fire in real time. But guess what? That woman, his new girlfriend, reached out to me, privately, slid into my DMs with, "Hey, can I ask you a few things about Mark's mom? Some stuff feels weird." We met for coffee. I didn't dump everything, just gave her facts. She asked, "Did Cheryl ever say things like, 'He's my only real connection,' or cry when he didn't answer right away?" I nodded. She paled. "She's doing it to me too," she whispered. Said I was too ambitious, that I'd leave him just like his dad did her. I just sat there, stirred my coffee, let her sit with it. She thanked me, said she needed to think. That was 5 days ago. Today I got a text. "You were right. She's unraveling. I'm out." Another one down. Same script, different girl. And Mark, still playing puppet. But that's the thing about strings. When you pull too hard, they snap. Stay tuned. Because Cheryl just started leaving voicemails again. And her next one? She threatens me directly. The voicemail was short, but it made my blood run cold. "You think you've won, Rachel? All you've done is prove how dangerous you are. Don't forget, I still know people, and I have nothing to lose." I saved it. Time-stamped it, bounced it to 3 hard drives and a lawyer I'd finally looped in through legal aid. Not because I was scared, because I was ready. Here's what she didn't know. I'd been quietly working with her ex-friend, Margie. Church friend turned enemy after Cheryl blackballed her over some community fundraiser drama. Margie hated her guts and owed me nothing. So when I reached out with a polite little message, "Hey, I know we don't know each other, but I think we have a Cheryl problem in common," she responded in less than an hour. Margie had archives, emails, screenshots, voicemails. All of it painted Cheryl as manipulative, controlling, and obsessed with appearances. But more importantly, there was a video. Margie had hosted a brunch months earlier. Cheryl, drunk on mimosas, ranting on a hot mic. Margie was recording for a church vlog and forgot to stop rolling. In the clip, Cheryl said, "I raised Mark to marry up, not down. Rachel is a charity project, and if I have to burn her out of his life, so be it. She's weak." Weak? Bitch. I clipped that video to 20 seconds and sent it to 3 people. Her employer's HR, the new HOA board president, yep, she'd been removed, and Mark. His reply? Silence. But 2 days later, I got a knock on Jess's door. It was Cheryl. No warning. Just standing there, hair frazzled, makeup half melted in the Texas heat. She looked wild. "You need to stop," she hissed. I didn't flinch. "Or what? You're ruining everything. My job, my reputation. You're dragging our family through the mud. You started this, Cheryl. For 2 years you gaslit, lied, manipulated your own son. You tried to destroy me. You lost." She shoved me. Not hard, but enough. Jessa was behind me in seconds, pulled out her phone. "Get off the property or I'll call the cops." Cheryl backed up, shaking. "He'll come back to me. They always do. You'll be nothing but another bitter woman who couldn't hold on." And then she left. We filed a restraining order that day. Emergency hearing, approved. But it didn't end there. 3 days later, I got a package. No sender name. Inside? Our wedding photo. Torn perfectly down the middle. My half missing. And a note, handwritten in all caps. "This is how it was always meant to be." So I made my final move. I scheduled a sit-down interview with a podcast that specialized in psychological abuse and ML interference in relationships. They had 80K listeners. I didn't name names, but if you knew the story, you knew. It went viral locally, fast. People recognized Cheryl from her church, from her job, from HOA meetings. And suddenly, her own social circle turned on her. Mark's next girlfriend? Gone again. Cheryl had said she was too emotionally needy. The girl lasted 2 months before blocking them both. At that point, I thought I was done. Until Mark showed up again. Holding my half of the wedding photo. Looking like hell. He was holding my half of the wedding photo like it was some kind of olive branch. I didn't invite him in. He said, "She took it out of your album before she mailed it. Hid it in her desk. I found it yesterday." I stared at him. "So what? That's supposed to mean something now?" Mark looked wrecked, shirt wrinkled, eyes hollow. He rubbed the back of his neck like he used to when he was caught in a lie as a teenager. "I left," he said finally. "Packed my stuff. I'm staying at a coworker's place." I crossed my arms. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I finally see it. All of it. What she did. What I let happen." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because of how absurd it was that it took 3 destroyed relationships, multiple job losses, and a podcast episode with thousands of downloads for him to open his damn eyes. But I didn't laugh. I said, "She isolated you. She undermined every relationship you had. Not just with me, everyone." Mark nodded. "She told my last girlfriend I had commitment issues, that I still loved you. She showed her a box of our wedding stuff and said I kept it for closure." He shook his head. "I didn't even know she had it. She'd been digging through my storage unit." "Of course she had," I said. "She's obsessed with control. She was crying last night. Said I'd abandoned her like everyone else. Started hyperventilating, said she was having chest pains. Called the neighbors to come over and witness it. But when they showed up, she was sitting up drinking tea like nothing happened." I didn't respond. I let that silence fill the air, thick and uncomfortable. Mark sat down on the edge of the porch. He looked small. "I think she needs help, like real help." I sat across from him. "She needed help years ago. What she needs now is distance, from everyone." He nodded. Then, quieter. "I don't know who I am without her voice in my head." I believed that. It's easy to think someone like Cheryl just poisons other people. But the truth is, she poisoned him too. He was raised in her reality. It wasn't just sabotage, it was grooming. But I wasn't here to fix Mark. So I stood. "You're not staying here." "I know. You need therapy, real therapy, not another breakup and apology tour." He nodded. "I've got an appointment, tomorrow." I didn't say good luck. I didn't hug him. I walked inside and shut the door. That night, Cheryl left her last voicemail. I didn't even have to play it. The cops did that for me. She'd been arrested, stalking, harassment, trespassing. Apparently, she'd shown up at my new office, screamed at the receptionist, demanded to see the woman who destroyed my family. Security cameras caught the whole meltdown, and now she had a court date. The queen had fallen. Update 2. I didn't think I'd write again. But after Cheryl's arrest, after everything, I owe you all this. The court date came and went. She pled down. No jail, but she's got a no-contact order for 2 years, mandatory counseling, and, get this, a public apology letter. She mailed it. Printed, signed, sent through certified USPS like some kind of legal penance wrapped in copy paper. I read it once. I was only trying to protect my son. I see now that I crossed lines I cannot uncross. I ask for your forgiveness, not for my sake, but so Mark can heal. It didn't mention the stalking, the threats, the PI, the voicemail about my barren womb. But hey, it had the word forgiveness, so I guess that's growth. Anyway, Mark didn't testify against her, but he did send me a message a few days later, just a photo of him in therapy. Legit. Knees together, face half covered by a notebook. Caption said, "Session 3, still unlearning." I didn't reply. He didn't expect me to. The podcast episode got picked up by another channel. It's now got over 300,000 listens. I've gotten DMs from women saying, "I thought I was crazy. Your story felt like mine." Turns out, Cheryl isn't rare. She's just louder than most. Jessa and I took a weekend trip after the court stuff. No phones, no revenge plans, just wine, a cabin, and silence. I cried the first night, not out of sadness, out of release. 2 years of gaslighting, 2 years of being called selfish, dramatic, too sensitive, not enough. And finally, I didn't feel like a prisoner in my own life. Here's the real kicker, though. Cheryl's old church? They hosted a women's panel last Sunday. One of the speakers was her replacement. The topic? Recognizing narcissistic abuse in families. Apparently, they're using Cheryl's story in their training materials now. She wanted to be the matriarch. She became a cautionary tale. And me? I'm not bitter, not angry, just free. 3 days after Update 2, Mark showed up again. I didn't let him in. We talked through the screen door. He looked like a ghost of the person I married. Thinner, paler. His hair was growing out uneven, like he didn't have the energy to care anymore. He didn't try to apologize this time. I'm not here for you, he said. I'm here for closure. I blinked. You don't get closure, Mark. You get consequences. He nodded like he'd expected that. But then he said something that hit like a brick. She did the same thing to my dad. I paused. What? She chased him off when I was 11. Said he was cheating, emotionally abusive. But I found out last week he was living in Arizona. Has a wife, a daughter. He's a pastor now. Never remarried legally because he thought she had. My stomach dropped. Why are you just telling me this now? Because I only just asked, he said. She never let us talk. Told me he didn't want me. Said I reminded him of her. I believed it for 21 years. He was shaking. Not from cold. From grief. She cut me off from my own father, Rachel. There it was. The full picture. She didn't just sabotage our marriage. She'd been doing this his entire life, grooming him into dependency. Every woman was a threat. Every man was competition. You need to tell your therapist, I said quietly. He nodded. I already did. I'm going to Arizona next month. He wants to meet. There was nothing else to say. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just stood there for a moment in the quiet, like two war survivors on opposite sides of the crater. That week, Cheryl's apology letter leaked. Someone from the HOA posted it anonymously in a neighborhood Facebook group. It spread like wildfire. The comments? Brutal. This woman tried to destroy a marriage because she couldn't let go. I knew something was off. She once called my daughter's shorts inviting, at a bake sale. She screamed at my dog for barking, at noon. She said it disturbed her meditation. It was open season on Cheryl, and she couldn't stop it. Her therapist dropped her after she refused to comply with treatment. Her church removed her membership officially. She sold her house. Last I heard, she moved 3 towns over to live with a cousin. Mark said she calls once a week. He lets it go to voicemail, keeps them as evidence. Says they're mostly sobbing in scripture now. I asked if he still misses her. He said, I miss the version of her I believed existed. I understood that too well. As for me, I finally moved out of Jess's place, got my own apartment again, small, bright, mine. The wedding album? I burned it. Not in rage, in peace. It was never our marriage, not really. It was a stage Cheryl built, directed, and set on fire. But I got out, and I never stopped telling the truth. It's been 4 months since Cheryl moved. 2 since Mark met his dad. 1 since I officially blocked both of them for good. And I feel done. Not angry. Not shaken. Just done. Mark texted me once after Arizona. Said his dad cried when they met. That he told him about the letters, how Cheryl intercepted them, returned them unopened, how she threatened him with court if he ever tried to call again. Mark said, he brought photos of me, printed, faded, from his wallet. Said he looked at them every day. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some things aren't for me to fix. What was for me to fix? My own goddamn life. So I did. I started painting again. First time in years. It's messy, abstract stuff. I hung one over my desk. It's jagged, bright, loud. Jessa said it looks like a thunderstorm having a panic attack. I said, good. I filed a formal complaint with the PI firm Cheryl used. Got a letter back last week saying the investigator had been terminated for unethical conduct. One less weapon in her toolbox. I also joined a support group for women dealing with narcissistic in-laws. Every Tuesday night, we sit in a circle and say things like, I found her reading my journals, or She offered my husband's ex money to come to Thanksgiving instead of me. You'd think that would feel miserable. It doesn't. It feels like armor. I even got a message from one of Cheryl's old acquaintances. She said, "We all knew something was wrong. No one said anything. I'm sorry." I didn't write back. I didn't need her apology. I'm not trying to go backward. Because the truth is, I've already won. Not because Cheryl lost her job or her friends or her son, but because she can't touch me anymore. And for the first time in years, I sleep without waiting for the next blow. That's the real victory. People ask sometimes if I'll ever date again. I will. But this time, no more red flags getting second chances. No more playing nice with people who weaponize family. And if some man's mother ever says to me, "He deserves better than you," I'll smile and say, "He does, but not because of you," and I'll walk away.